Hey guys, Rafe here from Evolve Move Play. Welcome to winter in the Northwest. I wanted to share some of the stuff that's going on with my personal practice with you to give you an insight into how you can kind of replenish yourself. I had a really crazy year this year. It was beautiful. I got to travel all over the world. I got to teach all over the States. I got to train with some of my favorite people and really take my practice to new levels. But at the end of that year, I felt really drained and tapped out. When I was in London teaching, I was doing some really nice high-level stuff, but I could feel like every movement that I did just took a little bit more out of me, made me a little bit more exhausted. And I started feeling like a knife that had been honed to such a degree of sharpness that just a few more strokes would break. So just a couple weeks later, I went to San Francisco to teach a seminar, and I was in this beautiful tree. I wanted to do some great movement for you guys and show it off. And I started to try and put it together, and I broke. My mind just stopped being capable of doing the highest level of stuff. And I knew that was time for me to take a break and to focus on some gentler aspects of my practice. And that was very hard. I've been doing parkour continuously for 10 years. But it was time for a break. And so what I've been doing is I've been coming to this park here, which is really close to my house, and walking every day. And I've been letting my practice just regrow itself from that simple act of taking a walk every day. And it's growing. And I want to show you guys some of the stuff that has come out from that process of just letting my practice replenish itself. So I hope you enjoy this episode. We'll show you guys some fun stuff today. So one of the aspects of my practice that I've been really interested in recently is kind of bridging this movement part of moving like a human into living like a human in a broader sense. There's a ton of knowledge that comes through the practice of movement. And you start to understand the value of embodied knowledge, the stuff that you can't read in a book, that you can only develop the sensitivity to, only develop the internal knowledge by actually practicing it. So one of the first things that I did when I took this break from my hard movement practice was I started coming into the woods and trying to study the woods, trying to understand what it is. There's a lot of stories here. There's a lot of knowledge that an ancestral human would have had about what is in the woods. These are salal berries. There's an edible berry. Most people don't know that you can even eat them. Behind that, we have sword ferns. We have Oregon grape right here. Right? These are good things to know. In my practice, I'm always looking for trees. This is a western red cedar tree. This is one of the best trees here in the Northwest for training, for climbing. I've been looking for tracks. I think being able to hunt, being able to gather are really important aspects of being a fully developed human being. So even though I don't have a hunting license and I'm not going to go shoot an animal right now, I can just come here and I can start looking for tracks and see if I can learn something about the animals here. I haven't been able to find any deer scat here in this big park, which is really interesting to me. But I've seen coyote and I've seen raccoon. And what I've kind of discovered, I think, is that the raccoons and the coyotes, they live here, but they're mostly getting their food out in the city. So it's a really kind of unique environment, and there's a ton to learn from it. And that's been an aspect of my practice that's really replenished me and helped me feel much more alive and engaged at this time when doing big jumps and scary things wasn't really what my body needed. So interestingly, one of the things that started happening when I just decided to walk every day, I would take a walk every day, was that sometimes I wanted to run and run for a while. Run for a long time. And I've always been a power athlete. I've always hated endurance efforts and kind of thought that they were contrary to really my goals. But I think that it's a missing piece. I think that it's something that a human being should be able to do. You want to get from one place to another, you should be able to run there. And having some endurance, it's developmental in a lot of ways. Yeah, if you try to go and be a marathon runner or a triathlete, it may be destructive to your jumping ability, to your lifting ability, but gaining these basic adaptions, just being a competent human being when it comes to running, that's something that we should all have. And it's been really interesting to just kind of enjoy the woods and take off for a run these last few weeks. The next thing that came back in my movement practice was climbing the trees, and this was pretty quick. I found myself attracted to climbing trees. I didn't have the same mindset of looking for technical difficulty or big stuff. But when I do my walk down, I'd always come to this park, and there's this beautiful tree here, and it was hard not to climb it. And when you climb it, you know, I can watch the sunset here, I can look out at the Olympics, and it's really just a beautiful climb. And so that's something that I've just been doing every day, just climbing this tree. When I first started coming here and climbing this tree, it was interesting because some days I'd go up and it'd be normal, it'd just be fine. But some days I'd have this intense anxiety that would kick in. And this is what started to happen when I kind of reached that really over-exhausted, over-fatigued phase. So one day I came here and I started to climb. And I was paying attention to my breathing and paying attention to my deep emotion and recognizing that even here, just, 8 feet off the ground, I already had a sensation of anxiety. I already had this tension. And I asked myself, why am I so afraid? I've done thousands of repetitions of climbing in trees higher than this, jumping, doing difficult movement. And so I sat here and I had a conversation with myself, and really what it came down to, it seemed like, was my company had grown so much and I'd gotten so close to really kind of breaking out and being able to give people this evolve, move, play practice and show the world what it is. And there was something to be afraid of in that becoming really successful means that you have to be good in a way that, there's not as much pressure when you're less notable. I have had a lot of gurus in this industry who I've seen develop an ego that's made them hurtful to people around them. And that's something I really wanted to avoid. And so when I stood sort of on the precipice of really being able to kind of have that platform to share what I'm doing, I realized there was a sense of fear, and that I had to come here and meditate and breathe and really ask myself, did I trust myself to take this on and to continue and to become really successful? And when I was able to answer that in the affirmative, all of a sudden the tree climbing came back. All of a sudden things slowly started to come back. So often these limitations that we have, they need us to really pay deep attention to ourselves. But it's good also just to have a time to change to what you do, to listen to your body in a different way. And while I haven't been aiming for goals like big swings or big jumps or big vaults in the last little while, as I've started to open up this movement practice here in the trees, again, it feels very nourishing. I start to notice that as a human being, I feel like I need to walk, I need to run, I need to climb, I need to be exposed to diverse environments every day. And this tree has been my buddy. Every day I've been coming here and, letting my hands and feet become deformed by the bark, getting that feeling of hanging and twisting, getting my ankles dorsiflexing, getting all this complex movement nutrition through moving in this tree right here, and starting to open up and feel this sense of play again. And that's, really a beautiful thing. So the trees have been coming back for me in my personal practice. So with my daily practice, I've been walking through the woods, paying attention to the environment, trying to learn as much as I can about the woods. I've been climbing trees, and I've been coming here and finishing at the beach. I'm really lucky to have all this close to my house. I've got this beautiful driftwood to run and walk on. I've got soft sand to practice mobility and falls and flow in. and I've got the ocean here. The walking on the wood I think is really interesting because I like to do natural movement. It's very important to do unnatural movements to develop strengths when we live unnatural lifestyles. But rather than doing a lot of mobility exercises for my ankle, just walking over this type of terrain and finding interesting balancing challenges, finding all these positions, all these movement patterns in the way that my feet are moving, I feel like feeds so much nourishment to my ankles that I need a lot less of the kind of formalized, really structured practices. I still do them, but I find that this is a really great nourishment. And coming from that parkour background, it used to be that I wouldn't really kind of recognize that I had done something nutritious for my body if I was just walking. I needed to run. But now with this deeper movement mindset, I start recognizing how nutritious just walking and experiencing balance challenges is. Not to mention hearing the ocean, being involved in this beautiful environment. So on a day when I'm really tired and fatigued and my body is not really interested in moving hard, I still try to come here, still try to walk, still try to feed my ankles this movement, feed my feet this movement, feed my toes, all these different ways of interacting with the environment, all these different surfaces and textures. So that's been a big part of my movement practice recently. So every day when I come down here and train, I run along the driftwood, and that gives one kind of set of demands to my ankles, my feet, my hips. But I also want to come here and run on the rocks because it feels really different. It feels like a different type of movement nourishment. I'm not running and thinking about specific rocks, specific routes very much. That's more the parkour mindset, and it's a good mindset, but it's not kind of where my mind has needed to be. So mostly I just go, I just move, and I move at the pace that feels good for my body. But I've been exploring moving just kind of primarily by my feet. Boom. I've also been exploring moving more using my arms and quadrupedal patterns. We see a lot of emphasis on quadrupedal movement in movement culture. And it's great, but it always strikes me as strange because it's all done on flat ground. And the most efficient way to move over flat ground, of course, is to run or walk. So these really complex patterns, sometimes I think they're a strange way to really try and look at how a human being moves, rather than going to a place that forces you into the context. Okay, you've got great quadrupedal movement, you've got cool patterns that you can do, but can you play with them? Can you do them? Can you find them within an environment that's truly challenging? What is the purpose of being able to have a bridge if you're only ever doing it on flat ground? Do you need to be able to drop into a Kitajihin's position if there's no application to it. So I've been playing with these patterns here on the rocks as well and exploring them as my practice has kind of rebuilt itself very organically, and it's been very interesting. It's been a lot of fun. So after I've walked through the woods, after I've climbed some trees, after I've run and played on the rocks and the logs, I found myself really attracted to moving using the vocabulary that I learned in martial arts. I do joint mobility and work on my joints, but I find myself wanting to combine the slow work that I learned in Kung Fu when I was a young child, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, and the kicks and the elasticity that I learned from Muay Thai and kickboxing and capoeira. The joint is, the joints need isolation, they need to be fed, but it's not enough. You don't have a healthy joint if it can just move through the range of motion. It has to be able to move both slow and statically and isometrically controlled, but also elastically. You have to be able to bounce. And so I've been playing with that what does my body crave? I'll come here and I'll practice traditional horse stance. I'll play with these soft style of flows, and then I want to feel that whipping energy in my arms. The kicks. And I find this very nourishing to my body to feel these whips move through them. And so a walk in the woods, a reconnection with nature, moving in the trees, moving on the rocks, moving on the driftwood, connecting to this capacity for self-movement, for combative ability. And then the last thing that I've been working on has been that breath work, really learning to heat my body. I've been playing with cold immersion for almost 5 years, but I didn't make a lot of progress with it until last winter when I learned to do it after I trained and really pay attention to my breathing to make sure that I wasn't becoming tense and scared and panicking when I was getting cold, that I had control of my nervous system. Over the last year, a lot of people have introduced me to Wim Hof's work, and I've picked up some of his concepts about using the oxygen, building as much oxygen in your body to create heat within yourself before you go into the water, and I found it really powerful. It's 38 degrees today, and I'm gonna get in the water, and I think I'll enjoy it. I think that I'll come out and feel even warmer than when I went in. And that's thanks to Wim's work, which I definitely recommend to anyone. He's the guy to look to understand more about cold immersion. But these have been the elements of my practice, and they've rebuilt me to the point where I feel very soon it's going to be time to go back to the hard practices, go back to the formalized work, go back to pushing the edges of my capacity. But it was really important for me to be empty for a little bit and to let my practice organically refill itself just by going outside and following my heart, following what felt good and asking myself what was holding me back. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. You'll see me get in the water here, and have a beautiful day. What an amazing feeling to come out of the cold, cold water on a cold day. We've got some wind here and feel more heat, more warm inside your body. This has been such a powerful practice for me, and it's felt so good to strip myself back down to the basics, to just be a guy walking in the woods and let my practice rebuild itself. Everyone is a human, and everyone is therefore a natural mover. That's how we evolved. When you take away the gym, when you take away all these ideas and you just go out and train, you can start to let it build. You can start to grow organically a movement practice. And you'll find so much aliveness in that practice. When I come down here to the beach, almost every day I think to myself, you know, I just swam yesterday, I feel cold, I feel out of it, I'm tired, my babies have been up all night, maybe I won't swim today. But I've been coming down here at sunset and the light is so beautiful, and I've got heron that comes down, a great blue heron that comes down and hangs out with me here at the end of the day when it's just me, usually at the beach. I see harbor seals, occasionally I'll see eagles, even river otters out here. And it's just, you want to be part of it. You want to be as alive as what you see. And I have to swim, I have to get in the water. And you know, that's been so powerful in rebuilding me and replenishing my heart and my desire to be a mover again, my desire to give my message to people again. So I hope that that's inspirational to you. I hope you guys can take that into your practice and start getting out there and moving and finding those things that really replenish you. So have a good day, guys. Thank you.